Today, I'm going to be covering the Fabric and Power BI updates that happened at the last week at the Fabcon conference. To be honest, I'd have loved to have been there, but it's quite a long way to come to Australia to get there. And hopefully next year, I'll make it either to the Fabcon in Atlanta or Fabcon in Barcelona, as I really would like to go. But with that being said, what I've done is I've put together all the updates and announcements that were made at the conference. I first start off with the Fabric and then go into Power BI. I also have included some of the monthly updates that have been released, but I'm mostly going to be covering the new announcements and all the new shiny stuff that has come about that I have found of interest. If there's anything that I've missed or left out, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to cover it in this video or another video. I will also have a linked blog post with all the slides and all the links. So if you're looking for one central place with all the Fabric conference announcements, you can find them on my blog post. So let's get into all the details and all the fun stuff from the past week. Okay, so let's get into the Fabric announcements first. So the first thing that I'll cover is there is now 100% support for the CI/CD across all the Fabric items. So this is great because this allows for version control and deployments across all the items. So this is something I really recommend people do, or even if it's for a smaller environment, because what this means, at least you can roll back and roll forward changes, because sometimes a mistake is made and it's much easier to roll back a piece of code than to try have to do it all over again. Apologies if some of these images aren't great. I have got them from Twitter or LinkedIn. So where possible, I've tried to find a better quality image. So apologies for that, but it is important to just show what was shown at the conference. Then there is the Fabric command line interface. So what the command line interface is where you can do things via command line. So what the reason for the command line is you can automate a lot of these processes. And what that then means is if you can use a command line, you can use things like an MCP server or those kind of AI things to do some work for you. And the reason I also wanted to highlight this is because it is now open source. So meaning other people can contribute as well as you can see the code. So I think that's great by Microsoft to make it open source, showing that they are willing for other people to contribute and allowing it to be viewed by other people. Then there were some data factory updates. So what I'm specifically focusing on here is the coming soon section. So as you can see, there is SSIS and Fabric. I wonder what that is, if it's like the SSIS that you used to have in Data Factory, but that'll be great to see that because I'm sure there's a lot of people and a lot of code that still runs on SSIS, as well as parameter support in the schedules. And the other one that really looked of interest to me was the ADF data flows upgraded to data flow Gen 2. So what that means then is people who know data flows from Power BI could potentially use the data flows from Azure Data Factory and just being able to understand on how it works and how to transform that data. Next is significant cost reductions in Dataflow Gen 2. So what this shows over here is not only is it faster, but it is actually consuming a lot less capacity units. And that was one of the original blog posts I did when I was comparing a Dataflow Gen 2 to a notebook. So it's great to see now, not only is it faster, but there's also cost reductions with how they've done this, which is just to show that they are listening and they are looking for improvements. So what I have over here is I've found the capacity unit rate for the Dataflow Gen 2. And the thing I'd like to point out here is that if you are using a Dataflow Gen 2 with a CI/CD, which is your continuous integration and continuous development, this is where you can get a significant reduction or be a lot cheaper to run a Dataflow Gen 2. So what that means is if you're running a Dataflow Gen 2 CI/CD, for every second for up to the first 10 minutes, it'll be 12 CUs per second. And then for every second after 10 minutes is only 1.5 CU per second. So that is quite a big difference. Versus if you just use the standard compute data flow out of the box as it is, you are using 16 CUs for every second, regardless of how long it is. So I'd highly recommend using the CI/CD version of the Dataflow Gen 2. It automatically starts off a lot cheaper. So, and it's great to see that you now can also see the capacity unit consumption rate for your data flows so that you can actually potentially work this out beforehand to know how much it is going to take. And with these new ways, it is actually a lot cheaper to use a Dataflow Gen 2. Another highlight that I saw was Microsoft and Snowflake delivering on the promise of openness and interoperability. Sorry if I can't get that out right. Sometimes I stumble across myself. But this is where Snowflake and Microsoft have agreed on open standards between each other. So what that means is Snowflake supports the Apache Iceberg table stored in OneLake, as well as OneLake can access both the Snowflake version and the Fabric version, which is Delta Parquet. So they can work between each other and read and write the files between each other. So that what this means is within OneLake, you can have the single copy approach, meaning you only need to have one copy of the data that can be accessed everywhere. So that is great to see. Next is a warehouse case sensitivity that now can be applied on a workspace. So what that means is when you create a new workspace, you can now decide what you want to set the case sensitivity for your warehouses. So what that means is if it's case sensitive, it means your uppercase and lowercase, you have to write it exactly, versus case insensitive means it doesn't matter. You can have either or, uppercase, lowercase. But what I did see, I read somewhere in a blog post, is that when using case sensitive, it actually can run significantly quicker, which I wasn't aware of. So just something, if you need something that's highly performant, you might want to stick with case sensitive. And one other thing to note is that if you have an existing workspace and you change the setting, it won't change your existing warehouses. It will only apply to new warehouses that get created. And the final one with regards to the Fabric updates is Microsoft Graph. And thanks to Leon from one of my original videos who commented on this and actually got me to go have a look and dig in, find what this graph is and what it does. So with Graph and Microsoft Fabric, you can model, analyze, and visualize complex relationships between your data sources. So what that means is that you now can have data sitting in potentially different lake houses or different areas. What you can do is you can essentially map this together. So you can say, this is my customer ID, this is my product ID, link it together. And what the graph will then do is it can then create a way for you to quickly and easily analyze products used by people, that kind of stuff. I have put a link here to the graph demo, which is a video where you can see exactly how it works, which will be much better probably than I'm trying to say. But where I think there's great value with this graph is you've got all your data sitting in Fabric, you've got it all sitting in lake houses, warehouses, whichever that is, but you want to get, understand customer behavior, customer patterns, which products sell to which customers and why. And this is a very quick way to do this. And not only that, you can then use Copilot to ask questions, or in the example here where it says, find me all people from the third degree connection of the person with a particular name, it'll then allow you to do this. And from my understanding is they've leveraged this from LinkedIn, where they use a lot of this graph data to surface a lot of information. So it's great to see that they're making this easier to use with existing data that you have. So I think there's going to be tremendous value for a lot of organizations who typically sell some kind of product, so allowing you to understand your customer better. Next, let's go into the Power BI announcements that were announced at Fabric. So you now have got the Power BI agents. So here you can chat with your data directly. Same preparation for AI applies, and including, if you want to create visuals on that. Again, apologies for the image. It's what I got from the think I got this off LinkedIn. Luckily, these are a lot better. I saw that Rui Romano from the Fabric team had posted this in his LinkedIn post, so I could get a much better picture. So what we have over here is Power BI and MCP. So the MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is an open protocol that standardizes how agents communicate with applications or platforms. So what you can see over here is say I'm a Power BI developer. I use my AI applications, LLM, whatever that is. It could be Copilot, Grok, ChatGPT, Claude, and using the MCP protocol, there are now two different ways that you can interact with this. One is with the modeling tools, which I'll get into on the next slide, and the other one is the query tools. So the modeling is where you model your block semantic model, and the querying tools to me is where you query the information. So here's the modeling MCP. So this is where you can translate modeling natural language into instructions for the tabular object model. So this is where I think, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is where the TIMDAL is coming in. So what this means now is you can easily do things, for example, over here, bulk renaming patterns or query refactoring. It can connect to anything in your model. So that's table related things, column related things, measure related things. And in a demo that I saw is where you could then just say, hey, give me a descriptive measure. Sorry, not give me a descriptive, sorry. What you could do is you could then say, give me a description for all my measures with business-friendly terms, etc. And it will go through and update your model and add those in for you. So that's something that is really powerful, as well as a lot of other updates that you can do for the modeling side of things. Then there is the chat with your data. So this is the querying side using the MCP. So again, this is hosted in Fabric. So here you can do things like run DAX queries by using any one of the LLMs. So you can then just say, I want to find out how many customers I have in the past 6 months. And this will then go write the DAX for you and return the result to you. So again, it's great to see that, there's more options. And the last one with regards to the Power BI remote MCP agent is what they call agentic development. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. So this is where as a Power BI developer, you provided a whole lot of text in terms of, this is my data source, this is what I'm trying to create. These are the measures that I want, these are the tables that I want to create, and then it will go and basically create the whole model for you based on what you put in. So the great thing here is that as your descriptions get better and more prescriptive, the models will get better. And not only that, you can then go through and make changes. So you can have a look and say, hey, let me see what this looks like. Is it quite right? Let me fix it, and keep on going through and making changes, or iterating is another word to use, so that you can then go through and get it to a point that works for you. I have put in 2 links in the bottom. I would highly recommend going to watch Rui's agentic development video in YouTube. It'll give you a lot more context to see how it works. And this will only improve with time as things get better. So while this was announced at the conference, the user-defined functions, I really think that this is a big thing, which is a lot of what people are talking about. So the way I would describe a user-defined function is almost like it's a piece of code that can be reused over and over again. So you can just have it stored once, or you create the code once, and then a whole lot of other things can reference it. So in the example you can see on the screen is where they've defined a function called add tax, where basically you take the input amount and multiply it by 10%. There are 2 links which I highly recommend you go look at. The introducing the user-defined functions in DAX from SQL BI is really great. They have a video as well as the blog post. But what I did not realize is that there's a whole lot of additional functionality that you can do with regards to creating the UDF. So it is in their blog post, and I would highly recommend you going have a look at that. Then, following on from that, they've also created a DAX lib website. So what this is for the UDFs, or user-defined functions. This is where a lot of the functions, you can literally just go look at the code. If it makes sense, copy the code, put it into your model, and then use it immediately. So Kurt from Data Goblins has got another great video. This video is always good, showing the centralization for the formatting of Power BI measures. So this is where you can take this existing UDF format string, copy it in, and then just use this as part of your format, dynamic format string in all your measures to automatically format it for you. So again, I'd highly recommend going to read I'd highly recommend you go watch the video from Kurt. Then the enhanced DAX time intelligence is another great feature that they've now brought in. And what you can see on the left-hand side is I've got a Gregorian calendar, which I would call a standard calendar, which just follows your January to December kind of calendar. And the right-hand side is a fiscal calendar where, finance typically like to do things differently. So they have a different month that they start on, in different countries have got different months. So what you do over here with the DAX time intelligence is, by creating the different calendars, you don't actually have to then go and try and figure out how to create time intelligence, where in the past this is quite a challenge. So as you can see in the piece of code there, when I want to do the same period for the last fiscal year, I can still use my same period last year, and all I've got to point it to is which calendar do I want this applied to. So I just apply it to my fiscal calendar, and automatically it will then apply that. I would again highly recommend going to read the blog post and watch the video from SQL BR. They give a great introduction in terms of how this works, and there's a few little things you need to know in terms of how to piece it together. If that is something of interest, please let me know. It's something I may be thinking of doing more along the lines of a fiscal calendar and a retail calendar. So if that is of interest, please let me know, and it might be something that I could cover in a future video or blog post. And finally, the last one is Tyndall is generally available. And while this is not something new, I think it is quite a significant step, because Tyndall not only makes it easier to read, it's easier to configure, version control. It's easier for all these new wonderful AI agents and AI. We hear AI all the time. I hear it all the time. But I'm definitely starting to find a lot of value for using AI with things like Tyndall. It just makes life so easy, because I can ask it to go and do a lot of things like I did in my previous video without me having to go and do it manually. It just makes it easier and better. And now that it's generally available, it means all organizations can then go and use this and be fully supported. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this interesting and you got a lot of information from that. And please use the links, and I would highly recommend going through the links and the blog posts and the videos, because there's a lot of useful information in there. So thanks for following along. And if you ever have any comments or questions, or you need some help with any of the new features that there are, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to see how I can help you now and into the future.